Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you one of the most versatile and simple biscuit recipes to use, and especially at this time of year. Let's get at it. So shortbread is also known as the 1, 2, 3 biscuit. Why? Because we start with 3 cups of plain flour. Then 2 cups of sugar. Just a little reminder, if you're using cup measurements, it doesn't matter what size cup you're using as long as you use the same cup for all the ingredients. Okay, that is really important. As long as you do that, you can use a teacup, you can use an espresso cup, you can use a bucket, as long as it's the same one. So next we're going to use 1 cup of butter. Now, I don't have the full cup of butter in this one pack. Now, this is a 250 gram pack. It will take another half a pack to have a full cup of the cup that I'm using. Also, good idea, try and soften the butter before you use it. Not melt, soften. My house is pretty cold at the moment. I've done what I could. It's not very soft. Now I would suggest to cut your butter into cubes, especially if it's a little bit harder rather than softer, because it will help to melt it down and help to be able to work it in if the pieces are a bit smaller. You could even grate it if you wanted to. I've chosen not to do that. I've just cut it into cubes. Okay, so it's up to you if you want to use a mixer. I'm using my hands in a bowl because I want to show you that it can be done. Because, you know, not everyone's got a mixer and not everybody can afford to turn the bugger on, even if they have got one. Okay, so I'm sitting down for this. I'm using a spatula. It is possible to do it that way. I'm starting to realize that the butter is a little too hard to use this way, but we're going to keep going. So at this point I have given up on the spatula and I'm going to use the mixers that I was given, that I was born with, that, you know, I was sent here with, and that's my hands. And yes, they're clean. They are clean. They're very clean. Now, at the beginning I told you I only put a block of butter in here and I need to put another half. What I'm trying to do is work in what I have already into this bowl to make sure that it does work in as much as I can, because like I said, it is cold butter. It's not hot butter, it's not softened butter, it's quite cold, so I've got to work it in and put a bit of effort into it. So I decided at this point I'm going to add in the other half block of butter because it's that important. At this point I've managed to get most of the stuff mixed in, but it still needs to come together. Now, shortbread is a strange creature, and I will call it a creature. It is full of butter. It absolutely is full of butter. Don't use margarine, for God's sake. You know, it's worthwhile spending the few extra pennies or putting some extra effort in making your own butter if you haven't got any, to actually use proper butter. The reason being is that shortbread tends to come out of the oven incredibly soft, and when you leave it to cool, in fact it's almost unusable when it comes out of the oven. Okay, because of it being so soft. When it cools down, the butter helps it to solidify, and it becomes quite a crunchy kind of biscuit. There are softer versions, like you can cook it for less time, like if you're doing Italian shortbread, which has no colour on it whatsoever. It has to be as white as white as white. It's pretty much the colour that it went into the oven is what you're going to pull it out at. So you only cook it at half the time that you were going to cook it for before. If you're doing normal shortbread. So 20 minutes for normal shortbread, you would do it between 5 and 10 minutes for Italian shortbread. Don't ask me why. And don't ask me why that's a thing. I spent years of my life making this Italian shortbread to the point where I will never ever make it again, because it was such a nightmare, and it drove me bonkers, and I got such a telling off nearly every single time I made it, because the ovens were awful and you couldn't predict how long it was going to take to get these biscuits done. So if, like me, you have used cold butter, you're going to find that your shortbread mix is going to be quite crumbly. That's okay, but it just takes a few extra minutes of work to push it together. Now, I'm going to be using a little bit of it here to make some crust for some mince tarts, mince pies. Because you can do that. Shortbread makes a really good pie crust or tart base, or, you know, base for, let's say, cheesecakes even. I use a shortbread base when I'm making chocolate tarts because it just works so well. In fact, I even had a message from a lady on my who follows my Facebook page last night, that she uses shortbread to make her own homemade jammy Dodger biscuits, and she sent me a picture and they were utterly stunning, really stunning. She said she uses it all the time, the 3-2-1 or the 1-2-3 method, and it saves her loads of money being able to do that. Now what I'm doing here is making sure that all of those crumbs push together to make a actual dough base. It's a little bit patchworky. It does take a few extra minutes, but it's worthwhile the effort. Now you're not going to want incredibly thick pastry for these, and as much as shortbread is very crumbly, what you will find if you're using them for something like mince pies is that the juice from the mince will go into the shortbread and help it to hold together. And again, the butter will melt throughout the dough and will hold it all together. So you'll end up with a really beautiful biscuity base. And we all like a really good biscuity base. So I'm going to crack on with these, and I'm going to come back when I've got all 12 done. Ta-da! The magic of YouTube. And here we are. I'm on my last one. So yeah, that's taken me about probably 5-10 minutes to get those done, but I'm being very, very particular because I just am. Now every year I make my own fruit mince, and this year I had some left over from last year, which I mixed up with the apple and blackberries that we foraged this year, but made into apple and bramble whiskey mead. So the fruit left over from that fermentation process went into the other fruit that we had, and I mixed up a bunch of seeds and nuts into it as well, and leftover fruit to bulk it out a bit, just to make sure that it was all done. And there we go, we have this wonderful, wonderful fruit mince, and can I just tell you, oh my god, it's quite possibly the yummiest one I've made. And even though it tastes as if it is full of booze, as it always does, it doesn't have any actual alcohol content, because the cooking process actually evaporates all the alcohol. And this was cooked not only the first time last year, but it was also cooked this year for about 45 minutes to get everything to mix together well and to jammify up. And then it was cooked again because I water bathed it. So there is no alcohol content left in this mincemeat. So it's completely safe for the kids. But it has made a very beautiful and unique fruit mince this year. And I'm hoping to hear from my sister shortly to see how she went with it, because I sent her down a jar earlier in the year when I made it. And I'm really hoping that she's going to enjoy it. So if you're looking for a fruit mince recipe or something similar that's not quite as boozy as this one, or just a simple basic one, then I do have a recipe called Boozy Fruit, and it can be found in the Ideas for Yule and Christmas playlist. Okay, fine, I'll put a link in the description below as well. Can we get on with this now, please? Thank you. So the second way I'm going to use my block of this particular batch of shortbread is to make little triangular blocks, individual triangular blocks. And later on in the week, possibly next week, I will be turning these into little Christmas trees. So either they will get chocolafied or they will get icinged, but there will be a little Christmas tree on each one, and it's perfect just as an individual little gift. However, if you're going to use a mold like this, it is really important that all of that dough is really rammed in hard so that it is full and not going to move. Any crumbliness is going to cook crumbly, and it's not going to be able to be pulled out afterwards. I mean, you can, it's just going to fall apart in your hands, and that's not what you want at all. Now this particular mold is absolutely great, and I picked it up on eBay for about £2, I think. It wasn't very expensive at all. It's one of those ones that's made so that you can have like 8 different slices of cake if that's what you wanted to do. But I find it really, really useful for things like this shortbread, where you can really make it stay where you want it. You don't have to worry about cutting it. And it's just the perfect individual sized piece. So once again, I'm going to come back once I've finished, because, you know, I can do that. Ta-da! Gee, I'm good. I'm down to the last one already. How cool is that? You know, and I've got them all really, really hard pressed into each of those molds, and I'm really, really pleased with it. Use your spoon. If you don't want to use your fingers, use a spoon and give it really, really hard into those molds. Now you can get shortbread molds, and this same technique would apply to those. They're the ones that have got the pretty thistles and things like that, and they're usually made out of wood, carved wood. So yeah, it's up to you how you want to do this. I just find this easier because I have this mold and I can use it for lots of different things. One thing about this mold is it really needs some stability underneath it, so I always place a baking tray underneath them to go in the oven. Okay, so to cook our shortbread, you're going to put it in the oven at 180 Celsius, which is 350 Fahrenheit, which is between 4 and 5 gas mark. Okay, all right, so if for the small ones, for the mince pies like this, 20 minutes is enough. For those bigger ones, you're going to want to put it in for 30 to 35 minutes. Now, here's the other thing. Do not pull them out of their trays until they are cool, as in really cold, because if they're not set, the bottoms will fall out and you're going to start crying, and no one wants that at Christmas. So if you've enjoyed this video, guys, please do go give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and pop in the comments, say hello, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye!